The wisdom of the world versus the wisdom of the word. Parable of the Unjust Steward, Part 3. St. Luke 16 verse 8 says, "And the Lord commended the unjust steward because he had done wisely. For the children of this world are in their generation wiser than the children of light." Welcome to Life is a Test. This is Exploring the Parables of Jesus, Part 66. Jordan is a finance manager at a major corporation. After mismanaging company assets and making questionable transactions, he is called in and fired. But Jordan doesn't just accept his dismissal, but he moves fast before the dust settles and updates his resume, reconnects with old clients, and lines up interviews. By the time the IT department deactivates his access codes, Jordan already had a new plan in motion. His hustle was sharp and his urgency was impressive. Everything he did was calculated to protect his comfort, his future, and his reputation. Now meet Sister Pamela, a faithful churchgoer who loves the Lord. However, she lacks urgency. She doesn't steward her time. She doesn't budget her money, and she doesn't develop her gifts. She watches life through a window, observing how the world hustles, networks, and plans, but never moves herself. She criticizes and complains, but where is her strategy? Where is her action plan for the kingdom? Where is her spiritual hustle? Jordan, though worldly, is wise in his generation, but Sister Pamela, though saved, is stagnant in hers. This is the contrast Jesus was making in St. Luke 16, verse 8, telling us that the children of this world are wiser than the believer. The unjust steward moved with urgency and with a plan. He acted fast. Jesus rebukes the children of light for lacking movement. So the question is not, are we saved, but are we strategic? Are we investing our gifts like we know time is running out? Are we moving like someone who has been entrusted with something eternal? Because if Jordan can do all that for a paycheck, what should we be doing for a crown? The steward in St. Luke 16 was praised not for his integrity, but for his insight. Jesus made it clear the man's integrity was questionable, but his insight and initiative were undeniable. He read the situation and understood the urgency. He acted swiftly for self-preservation. In fact, he played the system and still managed to win the approval of his master. But here's the critical distinction. Jesus never commended his sin. He commended his strategy. Today we live in a culture that idealizes shrewdness. The world celebrates those savvy entrepreneurs, the clever negotiators, and the trend-savvy influencers. Their strategies win applause, promotions, and profits. But worldly wisdom, when detached from righteousness, is a dead-end road. God isn't impressed by polished presentations or clever marketing if his voice is absent from the plan. Paul reminds us in 1 Corinthians 3 verse 19, "For the wisdom of this world is foolishness with God." So what gains applause from men may very well be despised by heaven. Yes, God wants us to be strategic, but only in submission to Him. Proverbs 4 and verse 7 declares, "Wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore, get wisdom, and with all thy getting, get understanding. But what kind of wisdom are we getting? We often equate wisdom with results, with success, and with influence. But biblical wisdom is not measured by profits, but measured by purity and purpose. James 3 verse 17 makes it plain. But the wisdom that is from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle and easy to be entreated, full of mercy and good fruits. So don't let worldly wisdom drown our eternal values. There is no virtue in being admired by the world if we are drifting from our spiritual assignment. There is no glory in being strategic if God was never consulted in our strategy. Jesus isn't against planning. He's against planning without him. He doesn't discourage thinking, but he urges us to think spiritually. God wants his people to be just as intentional as a shrewd servant and like Jordan, but with kingdom goals. We are not called to drift through life or delay our purpose. As followers of Christ, we are to steward our lives with intentionality and excellence under his lordship. Yes, we should make plans, build systems, and pursue excellence. But all of it must be filtered through the lens of eternity. Even in exile, the people of God were told to live with a vision and intentionality. In Jeremiah 29 verse 5 to 7, God said to the Israelites in Babylon, "Build ye houses and dwell in them, and plant gardens and eat the fruit of them. Take ye wives and beget sons and daughters, and seek the peace of the city, whither I have caused you to be carried away captives." God was telling them to have a strategy, live with vision, build with care even in unfamiliar places. So don't coast, don't complain, don't compare. Be spiritually sharp, be kingdom-minded, be intentional, because while the world strategizes for profit, we must strategize for purpose. And in the end, it's not how smart we look that matters, but whether we walked in the wisdom of God. St. Luke 16 verse 8 offers more than an observation. It reveals a tension that still exists today. The world demonstrating more urgency, strategy, and foresight than the church. The unjust steward, though dishonest, was commended for his foresight and quick action. He planned ahead and decisively secured his future. Jesus holds up this image as a mirror to the church. In our generation, the world is hustling. It's building, it's scaling, and positioning itself for influence. It strategizes for temporal rewards like fame and comfort or profit. But meanwhile, the church often lags behind, disorganized, slow to act, and lacking clear vision. We sit and admire the world's strategy, but too often fail to apply spiritual strategy for eternal impact. Yet Jesus didn't call us to be passive, because in St. Matthew 10 verse 16 he said, "Behold, I sent you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves. Be ye therefore wise as serpents and harmless as doves." This isn't a license for us to compromise, but a mandate to be spiritually strategic, sharp in our discernment, yet pure in our motives. The church should be leading in generosity, creativity, discipline, and planning, not playing catch up. So this parable is more than a financial lesson, but a wake-up call. Jesus is asking, if the world is this strategic for what is temporary, why aren't my people wise for what is eternal? Kingdom vision demands kingdom planning. As believers, we should be intentional in every area of our lives. How we manage time, how we raise our families, how we steward finances, how we reach souls, and how we serve with our gifts. If the world plans meticulously for a future that ends in dust, how much more should we, the children of light, plan with eternity in mind? Do we realize we can win every deal, climb every ladder, and still be lost? However, if we gain Christ, we have gained everything. As Galatians 6 verse 8 declares, "For he that soweth to his flesh shall of the flesh reap corruption, but he that soweth to the Spirit shall of the Spirit reap life everlasting." Every decision we make sows a seed, either into the flesh or into the Spirit. Promotions and popularity will fade, but eternal investments echo in heaven forever. So let's pause and take an honest inventory. Are our hours, talents, and resources building God's kingdom or merely boosting our resume? Are we hustling for an applause or living for that final well done? It's time for the church to rise. Let's not let the unjust steward outpace us in vision. Let us be found wise, willing, and working until our final audit, when the Master returns to settle the accounts. God bless you as you continue to be good stewards of God.